He turned to the men of his household who were near, and he spoke to them now in a clear voice, so that many also of the riders of the first Aeorid heard him. Now is the hour come, riders of the mark, sons of Eor. Foes and fire are before you, and your homes far behind. Yet though you fight upon an alien field, the glory that you reap shall be your own forever. Oaths have ye taken, now fulfill them all, to lord and land and league of friendship. Men clash spear upon shield. Eomer, my son, you lead the first Aeorid, said Theoden, and it shall go behind the king's banner in the centre. Elfhelm, lead your company to the right when we pass the wall, and Grimbold shall lead his towards the left. Let the other companies follow behind these three that lead, as they have chance. Strike whenever the enemy gathers. Other plans we cannot make, for we do not know yet how things stand upon the field. Forth now and fear no darkness. The leading company rode off as swiftly as it could, for it was still deep dark, whatever change Widfara might forebode. Merry was riding behind Dernhelm, clutching with the left hand, whilst with the other he tried to loosen his sword in its sheath. He felt now bitterly the truth of the old king's words. In such a battle, what would you do, Meriadoc? Just this, he thought, encumber a rider and hope at best to stay in my seat and not to be pounded to death by galloping hooves. It was no more than a league to where the outwalls had stood. They soon reached them, too soon for Merry. Wild cries broke out, and there was some clash of arms, but it was brief. The orcs busy about the walls were few and amazed, and they were quickly slain or driven off. Before the ruin of the north gate in the Ramus, the king halted again. The first Aeorid drew up behind him, and about him on either side, Dernhelm kept close to the king, though Elfhelm's company was away to the right. Grimbold's men turned aside and passed round to a great gap in the wall further eastward. Merry appeared from behind Dernhelm's back. Far away, maybe 10 miles or more, there was a great burning. But between it and the riders, lines of fire blazed in a vast crescent, at the nearest point less than a league distant. He could make out little more on a dark plain, and as yet he neither saw any hope of morning nor felt any wind, changed or unchanged. Now silently the host of Rohan moved forward into the field of Gondor, pouring in slowly but steadily, like the rising tide through breaches in a dike that men have thought secure. But the mind and the will of the Black Captain were wholly bent on the falling city, and as yet no tidings came to him, warning that his designs held any flaw. After a while the king led his men away, somewhat eastward, to come between the fires of the siege and the outer fields. Still they were unchallenged, and still Theoden gave no signal. At last he halted once again. The city was now nearer. The smell of burning was in the air, and a very shadow of death. The horses were uneasy, but the king sat on Snowmane, motionless, gazing upon the agony of Minas Tirith, as if stricken suddenly by anguish and dread. He seemed to shrink down, cowed by age. Merry felt himself as if a great weight of horror and doubt had settled upon him. His heart beat slowly. Time seemed poised in uncertainty. They were too late. Too late was worse than never. Perhaps Theoden would quail, bow his old head, turn and slink away to hide in the hills. Then Merry felt it at last, beyond doubt. A change. Wind was in his face. Light was glimmering. Far, far away in the south, the clouds could be seen, dimly as remote grey shapes, rolling up, drifting. Morning lay beyond them. But at that same moment there was a flash, as if lightning had sprung from the earth beneath the city. For a searing second it stood, dazzling far off in the black and white. its topmost tower like a glittering needle. And then, as the darkness closed again, there came rolling over the fields a great boom. At that sound, the bent shape of the king sprang suddenly erect. Tall and proud he seemed again, and rising in his stirrups he cried in a loud voice, more clear than any there had ever heard a mortal man achieve before, "Arise, arise, riders of Theoden! Fell deeds awake, fire and slaughter, spear shall be shaken, shield be splintered. A sword day, a red day ere the sun rises. Ride now, ride to Gondor." And with that he seized a great horn from Gulflaf, his banner bearer, and he blew such a blast upon it that it burst asunder. And straightway all the horns in the host were lifted up in music, and the blowing of the horns of Rohan in that hour was like a storm upon the plain and a thunder in the mountains. Ride now, ride to Gondor." Suddenly the king cried to Snowmane, and the horse sprang away. Behind him his banner blew in the wind. White horse upon a field of green, but he outpaced it. After him thundered the knights of his house, but he was ever before them. Eomer rode there, the white horsetail on his helm floating in his speed, and the front of the first Eored roared like a breaker foaming to the shore. But Theoden could not be overtaken. Fey he seemed, or the battle fury of his fathers ran like new fire in his veins. And he was borne up on Snowmane like a god of old, even as Orome the Great in the battle of the Valar, where the world was young. His golden shield was uncovered, and lo, it shone like an image of the sun. And the grass flamed into green about the white feet of his steed. For morning came, morning and the wind from the sea, and darkness was removed, and the hosts of Mordor wailed, and terror took them, and they fled and died, and the hooves of wrath rode over them. And then all the host of Rohan burst into song, and they sang as they slew, for the joy of battle was upon them, and the sound of their singing that was fair and terrible came even to the city.